Guys, congratulations to you both on the film. I absolutely loved it. It's so compassionate, and it's a subject that's been with us for so long, and really it doesn't show any signs of going away. Now, Ben, I believe it was inspired by your time in refugee camps in Syria. I wondered how you came to be there in the first place and how that experience is reflected in the film.
Yeah, it's actually, I mean, so it's, I mean, so it actually started out with my time in Syria, which I think is, my connection to the subject matter. I ended up spending my third year of university studying at Damascus University as part of my undergraduate degree in Arabic and politics. And then it was so I act, and then so this was kind of 10 years ago, and then sort of I went to film school, and then I ended up going to refugee camps a little bit later on to work with an NGO in the Sahrawi refugee camps in southern Algeria. And we were working on a project that was specifically about identity and how the label of being a refugee affects identity. And that really sort of stayed with me. So then kind of flash forward again, when I went to, into making Limbo, I had this experience of working in this refugee camp, and I had this experience of living in Syria, and I was still in contact with the friends that I had made there. And I think, while I went on and did a lot more research following that in the writing process, I think that kind of the sort of key thing was identity, and that really stayed with me. And ended up being sort of quite central to writing the kind of emotional journey of Amir's character Omar in the film, and his struggle of coming to terms with his identity as a refugee.
Because I think this is a subject that we all think we know something about simply because we've seen it in the media. But actually, all we get in the media really is statistics. And was what you've just talked about part of how you managed to overcome that?
Yeah, I mean, part of one of the main things I started out with was a list of things to avoid. One of those things was using Western character as a vehicle to tell a story about refugees, and another of those things was sensationalizing the subject matter. And part of that is there's this kind of process of dehumanization that we get from this. Part of that is looking at refugees as just numbers and statistics. So really the aim was to try and do something that humanizes the refugee experience by somehow making a film about refugees that isn't really about refugees. It's about people, and it's about identity and loss and family and all of these things that are universally relatable. Yeah.
So Amir, as Ben said, this is all about people rather than statistics. And your character, Omar, has a number of relationships, not just with the people in the same group as him on the island, but there's also his family, who, of course, apart from one scene, we never actually see, we only hear them. I wondered how you managed to get round that in terms of working on the character and showing that relationship.
Yeah, I mean, also hats off to all the actors over the phone. The final piece was incredible. Kind of, I wasn't lucky enough to do the scenes with them over the phone. I had one of the ADs say the lines in their thick Scottish accent, which was it was Glaswegian, I think, right? I don't know, which is probably harder to hear for me, but no, jokes aside, it was there was a constant feedback. There was and also the reality was we were on that island. There was really bad reception. We were away from our own families, and obviously I'll never, I've been very lucky and privileged to have not even experienced what many have in reality, but just to have an ounce of that and to know what it feels like to be away from home and not being able to talk to them, it still got to me. And I thought, God knows what actually, like Omar would have actually felt in that moment. And that song, what it represents as well is incredibly, incredibly moving. by itself. So yeah, whilst it was challenging, it was really great to have someone like Ben being constantly there and hands-on. We had an amazing working relationship, on set, and we were constantly reminded of the gravity of the situation. So as to not let ourselves overspill emotionally as well.
And one of the things that your character really misses from home is his mum's cooking. And I always remember those wonderful scenes with him and the guy that owns the supermarket who gets that jar of paste especially for him, which is incredibly touching, because you think the guy's actually going to be the most difficult of the lot, and he's not. But what I'm getting round to asking you is that what's your cooking like?
What's my cooking like?
Yeah.
Listen, if that is kind of an invitation, I'm going to be back in London soon. We can arrange a day. But
I wouldn't be so blatant.
But it's nowhere near as good as my mom's cooking, I'll tell you that. But no, I've picked up a few things along the way, but I wouldn't compare myself to the Middle Eastern culinary skills that my father and my mom possess.